but first we got to find a hormone specialist. That's kind of backtracking it.
I wasn't expecting to still gain the weight, even though I wasn't having symptoms, even though I was on the hormones.
But I know in time I want the creams. But at this moment, I'm just doing a patch. HCRP is a high sensitivity CRP inflammation marker, and it's just overall inflammation in the body.
Well, hello and welcome to the show. I have Vanessa Soviero and Kelly Schmidt in the house with us today. Dr. Vanessa and Kelly Schmidt, who I'm getting to know a lot over the years. The more so, Kelly's been on the show many times, so I'm sure many of you listeners are used to seeing her here and hearing her and her wisdom. We got together this past year and we decided to write a book. I'm the main author because I'm putting all the goods together, but I was introduced to both of you for a purpose, and I know that there is no coincidence in that at all. So it is amazing how this is all kind of unraveled, and we are putting together something that we want to support women living with diabetes of all ages, primarily through hormonal stages. But as you're going to see, as you get the book and hear us talk today, there's going to be a lot of other stuff weaved in there because guess what? Everything affects hormones and hormones affects everything else. So the two just kind of bounce off each other. Let's start. So Dr. Vanessa, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your life living with diabetes. And then when we get done, I'm going to go over to Kelly. And then I want to hear what your first thought was when I reached out and asked you to be part of this book.
Hi, so I'm Vanessa Soviero. I'm an OBGYN. I practice on Long Island, New York. I no longer deliver babies. I now do GYN care only, and I specialize in perimenopause and menopausal care. I myself am a type 1 diabetic. I actually got diagnosed when I was 26. I graduated med school in July. And then, I graduated med school in May. And then I started my OBGYN residency in July. And for a few months, I was having symptoms that I kept attributing to being a brand new doctor, not sleeping at night, until one day in October, as a brand new doctor, I was diagnosed on labor and delivery, although I was not pregnant. I was doing a rotation with diabetes. So I started as a type 1 at 26. I went on an insulin pump 2 years later. And then like my patients, I experienced pregnancy and diabetes. And now I'm in midlife experiencing perimenopause and menopause with type 1 diabetes.
Really good. Thanks. And Kelly, over to you. We're going to remind our listeners a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, I'm excited to be back and I'm excited to have this conversation with both of you and just hearing a little bit about you, Vanessa. I just want to connect and get to know more. So it's an honor to be here. And Melissa, it's always wonderful conversations with you too. So I'm Kelly Schmidt, registered dietitian, and I'm the owner of T1D Functional Nutrition. And I was diagnosed at the young age of 8, and I was diagnosed on my birthday. And I would say my fire is my own condition of why I care so much about type 1. And indeed it is, but it comes really from my dad. So my dad has type 1 diabetes, and he has faced most, if not every complication from the condition. And he's still alive today, but it is a fight. And he's my big why. And one big difference, if you could guess, from my father to me is male versus female. And a lot of things that I have gone through, and now I'm 42, from having 2 children to puberty to birth control and so forth, were things he couldn't relate with. So I'm excited to be here, so much to offer, and I'm grateful, Melissa, that you're putting together a book to be a great resource for the need overall.
Oh, thank you so much. And, before let's go ahead and talk about, okay, so when I reached out to you, Kelly, I'm not even sure which one of you I met. It might have been simultaneous for all I know. But I know, Vanessa, I was introduced to you from Ginger Vieira, who is big in this space. She's been on the show a few more times. She's a great friend. Yeah. And even this goes back because her and I were chit-chatting, and she mentioned she knew how much I just loved this space. Yeah. She knew I was living hormones, literally living, surviving, coaching it. And she's like, you have so much. And I have a lot of resources that I've created over these years, just like you, Kelly, and you, Vanessa. I know over all the things that we've researched, put down, helped patients and clients with. And she's like, you need to write a book. And then the first thing is that she was going to write it with me. She's like, because she knew I have never written a book, and she knew I was like, oh, I'm not sure how to do this. And then fast forward, she's like, I got somebody you got to meet.
Well, it's funny because I was doing an interview for Ginger about some OBGYN topic. Yeah. And while I was talking to her, my insulin pump started beeping. I was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. Just so you know, I have diabetes. That's my insulin pump. She goes, wait, you have diabetes? I'm like, yeah, I'm a type 1. And that's how it started. It was like an accident that she found
Mm-hmm.
out, and that's how this all happened. So I think this is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely happened for a purpose. And so I reached out to you and I was like, well, I had to sit in it for a little bit. I'll be honest. I'm getting older and a little bit more wiser about how I'm spending my time in my business and how I'm, the things that I'm putting into it. But I had to just sit in it for a couple months, just the idea of doing this. The voice just kept talking to me. I think God was just saying, come on, you can do this. This is why. And it's like what you say, cute, Callie. We were here for this purpose. We were given a diagnosis. I'll say given because we were, this is something that was assigned. It's an assignment, I think, in life and how we want to use it and share it and to prosper with it and to help others do it the same way. So I think that's really what happened. And then when I found out that not only are you living with diabetes, Vanessa, but you are a hormone specialist. And I was like, well, jackpot. I mean, and on top of it, you're interested in being part of this because, just because you find somebody doesn't mean that they're interested or they have the time to commit. So I felt so overjoyed. I mean, and then when you and I had a chance to talk, it was a few months ago, because I'll be honest, I had the white coat intimidation factor because I am human and as about as humble as you can be. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to expect. But you blew me away with your
Oh my
passion.
God, thank you.
And I said, this is so meant to be because I think you may even be more passionate about the purpose of this than I was, if that's possible. And
I love it.
yeah. And I already knew Kelly was because she's, her and I we've had a chance to meet in person and we are so eye to eye on all of this. I'm in postmenopause, you're in perimenopause, and we'll get into that more in a minute. But it doesn't really matter because no matter what, we women really need a community and gosh, we need a survival guide,
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's so important that we reach out to women that are living it. I mean, can a man help treat symptoms of menopause? Of course, but who can help more than women going through it themselves and also living with type 1 diabetes and all the challenges that go with it? Because there's a lot of challenges, but we can get through all of this just as easily as other women.
Yeah. So, Kelly, what was your first response when I asked you?
Yeah.
Be honest. You can be honest.
I think it was through email, and we have similar thoughts, as you already coined, and it is, I try to protect my energy. With type 1 diabetes, we need to. There's so much to do, not only the career and goals we have to thrive. And you asked me, and I have this rule to only say yes to things that are a hell yes. And it was a hell yes. So my motto is say no to everything that's not a hell yes. And when you asked me, I was like, absolutely. And I love how there's an opportunity for a health coach, a doctor, and a dietitian, and different seasons of life to infuse this book with strategies, systems, tactics, data, and experiences.
Yeah, perfectly said. So what about you, Vanessa? What was your first response when I reached out to you? And again, it was by email. Yeah, when I first introduced myself.
So for me, being in the perimenopause, menopause world, perimenopause and menopause is finally coming out. Women are finally talking about it, but it's still very hidden. Women still live with the symptoms in secrecy. A lot of women are suffering. So the fact that you were interested in especially this phase, of course, all phases of a woman's life are important. But to me, that was like key because this is the phase that no one talks about. A lot of people talk about pregnancy, but this is the part where we're forgotten about. And then tacking in the whole diabetes thing and the complications, like a lot of the symptoms, as we'll talk about, overlap, which could be very worrisome and scary for diabetic women. Like, is it your sugar that's dropping or is it a hot flash in the middle of the night?
Right.
So a lot of women don't talk about hormone therapy as an option, period, end of story. But everyone has to know it's a potential option for them because there are also long-term health consequences to menopause and perimenopause and diabetes. So we have to work together. It's definitely a team effort. It definitely can't be just an OBGYN or just a dietitian. It's everybody. We all need to work together.
Right. And it's all about having the information. Anybody that's working with you obviously is getting that, which is pretty golden for them. The average OBGYN, and you know this as well, is not hormone trained. That is missing in the whole medical model, isn't it? And like you say, it's going to take time to get there. So I think that's the number one thing that this book is going to do, and what we continue to do when we're meeting and coaching and working with clients and patients, is presenting the facts. And just like you say, these are the things that you need to know, so they have, I guess the word, I don't know if it's not informed consent. I know there's another term for it, but basically working with your doctor.
Yes.
I have so many of my clients that literally we sit down and we just kind of go through all of their options, where they are, what they should be asked, and equipping them. And this is going to be in the book too. I'm going to be giving them, and a lot of this came from you, Vanessa, is what to ask the doctor, how to guide your doctor visit. Of course, first we got to find a hormone specialist. That's kind of backtracking it. But anyway, still, I mean, sometimes maybe it does start with the endo, or you got to start there. Maybe it's with your primary care. It just depends on the situation and what sort of medical care they have. But I think that's the most important thing, is they got to, number one, understand this is happening, why it's happening, what they can do about it, and all the different options that they can take. But it is all about knowing, right? It's all about knowing. Yeah.
And like you said, since most OBGYNs, most doctors are not trained for menopause and perimenopause, they will likely be dismissed by their own doctors.
Yeah.
Not their fault, I understand, but most importantly is that by you having this book is going to open a lot of women's eyes where they can find specialists, because we're all over the country. And women can find that. And that's the most important thing, is that they know there's someone that can help them, and they can still find someone, even if it's not the doctor who delivered their 3 kids.
Yeah. Yeah. A statistic that I pulled up, again, this is probably somewhat estimated, how stats always change, but there's an estimated 1.8 to 2.5 million women age 40 and up worldwide. Again, this is not the U.S. specifically, but guess what? This book will be available worldwide, are living with type 1 diabetes. That's incredible, that number. It's
actually more than I thought. I thought there was less people. That's crazy.
Again, worldwide. So maybe that's where, obviously the number just shoots. Yeah, but that's still a lot of women. Again, that's just 40 up, and, one of the things I wanted to mention too, that's real important. When I first started to kind of materialize this book, I was only focused on menopause. I really was. I had hormone therapy in my head because I know what a magic solution that is. And, I'm a big advocate of, everybody here on the show knows that. But I was like, you know what? I think I need to start at the beginning, which is really the monthly cycle. Because if we don't understand where it starts, then how are we going to know when it suddenly just turns into a volcano in some cases, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just kind of where we are with that. Let's talk about speaking of hormone cycles, where are each of you right now, and share as much as you're comfortable with, and what you're currently doing, because women love to hear relatable, well, that's interesting, or okay, based on your age and where you are, your stage, and, what kind of lifestyle and hormones that you're currently using. And Kelly, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start.
We'll start with the youngest. I'm assuming she's the youngest.
I had mentioned I'm age 42. I was diagnosed when I was 8, so 34 years of type 1 diabetes. And I think it's important to even mention a little bit of my medical history, and that's relating to my sister, who was an Irish twin, just 11 months older. She started getting early menopause symptoms. So she helped me navigate hormone needs so early. So at age 38, so 4 years ago, I started taking progesterone. And I started taking progesterone because a big one was my basal needs shifted, but my lifestyle and so forth did not. And I was trying to understand what variables really rocked the boat. But along with that, so did my sleep. And I know sleep deprivation can drive insulin resistance and so forth. But I really had a prominent symptom list in my late 30s. And I mentioned medical history too, because my mom's side of the family all had early menopause. And I think it's important to kind of ask those questions and learn what has happened to our generations above us. So I am 42. I'm on day 16. I'm going to get specific. And I know that because I am cycling progesterone. So I take oral progesterone, and I take that on day 14 until day 28. And then I also utilize an estrogen patch. And the estrogen came into my journey years after the progesterone, maybe around age 40. I almost forget exact. I don't have that noted in my calendar. But I've even tried going off estrogen because I do have such religious 28-day cycles. And when I went off of it, I felt like the lights went out in my brain. And that might be dramatic, but like the brain fog existed, even just my drive and clarity, and most definitely, again, blood sugar volatility. So blood sugar control was my most aggressive, like I need to take action, ask the right questions and get some solutions. But there is definitely the others of brain fog, mood, restless sleep, and more.
Yeah.
And I do have an upcoming appointment here next week, and I have a list of questions to identify, am I on the right hormones, the right amounts, the right regimen? And I want to get testosterone tested because I've always been borderline low since I've been testing in my 40s. So that's a little bit of my journey. What questions or details did I leave out?
No, that's interesting. I have one little question. As far as estrogen, is that something that you're taking continuously, or is that?
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah. Do you cycle that?
I cycle that as well. And it's almost like when I talk to clients too about hormones, HRT, and I'm so excited to hear what you have to say, Vanessa. It's like when I optimize clients and their gut health, like it's specific probiotics, maybe gut lining support and so forth. But I also see the regimen of HRT also similar. It's unique to the person. So I take that progesterone day 14 until day 28. And then I take my estrogen patch day 21. As soon as I bleed, I put on that patch until day 21. So there's a lot of notes in my calendar telling me what day it is, along with all the insulin, and the pod changes and so forth. But it's a lot to manage, but it's worth it. It's really worth it.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? Yeah. Because feeling better feeds how we take care of ourselves, and how we take care of ourselves feels it's all one cycle. We know it. And the sooner we know that, the better, right? Yeah. We just got to surrender to it. So what about you, Vanessa? What would you like to share?
Well, I just turned 51. And for me, I've been specializing in menopause for about 4 years, and I wasn't having any perimenopausal symptoms, but I'm not going to lie, I did not want to experience them. So I put myself on hormones before I even had symptoms. So I am fortunate. I have not had symptoms, but that's because I've been on the estrogen and the progesterone probably for about 4 years now. And I did initially realize that my sugars were a little bit better when I was on them. I don't know. Was it because maybe I wasn't sleeping and then started sleeping? I don't know. But I did it more for preventative purposes. And I'm fortunate. I do see women suffering every day, and I almost feel guilty that I don't know what that suffering is like because I started my treatment beforehand.
Interesting.
So I do an estrogen patch. Yep, I do the weekly patch, and I do the progesterone pill at bedtime, and I do them both continuously every day.
I love this that we're sharing this. This is awesome. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm the old lady here. I'm 58, and this is interesting because perimenopause wasn't even a word when I was going through it.
Yes.
So I was going through it, and this is going to really be highlighted in the book too. Not just my story, but a lot of women. That's another thing I didn't mention. There's a lot of stories in this book that I've been able to bring in, and different aspects, different experiences, and what they've learned along the way that, again, other women can kind of learn and take from. And I was early phase and having all the symptoms, but again, I didn't know it was hormonal symptoms. To go frozen shoulder, that was debilitating. It was, and nobody knew it was hormone. Well, they knew, but they didn't know. I'm just going to call it like it is. They didn't know because they didn't say it, so they didn't know. And the poor sleep, the insulin resistance, basal rates just kept going up, gaining weight, all the things, but not understanding that it was hormone related. I had, and this again is in the book, and I don't know that I've talked too much about this on the show, but I had an endometrial ablation when I was 40. Again, this goes back a long ways too, because knowing what I know now, and again, I'm not a doctor, I can't really say this for sure, but my assumptions is what I can really expect. What was really happening at age 40 was low progesterone. And Vanessa, maybe you can say yay or nay to that, but I know that's a common symptom is those heavy cycles. I mean, I was missing work. They were so heavy. And so I had the ablation done. That was life-saving. It was. I went from heavy cycles to barely nothing. So when I was the next 10 years, I was literally I didn't notice a big difference difference in my cycle? Because that does tend to be the marker, right? We think that's the only marker, but again, there's a lot of different nuances with that, different types of birth control that prevent a cycle and, all those different things. Again, Vanessa, you could talk better into that than I could. Because birth control was not something I was ever on. So there's a lot of it I can't really speak to. But it's interesting because I felt like my perimenopause symptoms were masked.
Yes.
Because I didn't have a cycle to tell me that things were changing. But when I look back, I'm like, yep, now I know. Now I
The
know.
other thing I think is important for women to know is a lot of people think you have to have irregular periods to be in perimenopause. There are tons of women who have completely monthly periods, but still have perimenopausal symptoms. So even if you weren't having cycle changes, doesn't mean you were not having hormone fluctuations.
That's right. That's right. That is so true. Because it's definitely, that's something too that I'm assuming that you do as well, is when you're talking with women, is still track the month, track your symptoms throughout the month, even if there's not a bleed to indicate anything, right? So that's a really good indicator. Throughout the book, there's going to be a lot of prompts for tracking, and to the point where women might be rolling their eyes. I don't know. But I really think it's important to get a handle on, or not a handle, but an eye or an understanding of what's going on in order so you can learn, so you can understand. And again, that's going to help in the doctor visits. That's going to help in the interpretation of, what's going on. So anyway, it might be a pain in the neck to keep track of things, but just like Kelly says, that's something you do. And look where you are, right?
It does help women because a lot of times also validates them because they think, oh, my period's irregular, it can't be my hormones. But when you see that the week before your period is when you're sleeping the worst, your anxiety is the worst, your palpitations are worse, it's validating that you're not crazy. You really are having cyclical symptoms despite regular cycles.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Vanessa, I want to ask you too, what did you personally experience that the textbooks didn't prepare you for?
Well, I should have known this, but the weight gain part of it. So I thought I was going to outsmart menopause. And because I was putting myself on the hormones before I had symptoms, I said, I'm not going to gain the weight like everybody else. However, the hormones are weight neutral, meaning they don't cause you to gain weight and they don't help you to stop the weight gain of menopause. So I wasn't expecting to still gain the weight, even though I wasn't having symptoms, even though I was on the hormones. So that did shock me. And then like everybody else, I struggled with the weight and I did end up going on a GLP-1, even though they're not FDA approved for type 1 diabetes. It was a miracle for my sugars and it helped me with the weight loss. So altogether, I'm medically in a much better place because of the combination of treatment that I'm on.
Nice. Yes. Kelly, can you speak into that? Is there something that maybe that surprised you, once you were in it?
I think everything surprised me. I didn't expect to have this reverse puberty. I didn't expect to have to relearn type 1 diabetes. I think that's the biggest aha. And it's just a huge reflection of what always worked isn't always going to work. My strategies, my routine, my goals are all different than they were in my 30s. It's definitely than my 20s.
Yeah.
Overall. And I'm curious to even ask a broad question here, Vanessa. I'm sure listeners are very curious if I am. But I've done work in a few different fields, always in my own private practice in nutrition, but I did help consult for a women's health practice, and they were prescribing GLPs for perimenopause. Is that a standard medication now for perimenopause? Is that an on-label medication for perimenopause?
It's not, I wouldn't say on label. I would say it's off label. And for me, I don't prescribe the GLP-1. So here where I practice, I do refer out for weight management, but I do tell my patients, listen, even on hormones, it's not going to help you lose the weight. And metabolically, the changes that are happening in our body, it's even though women are going to the gym, and by the time most women come to me, they're already eating healthy, they're working out, and they're just not losing the weight. So I will tell you, compared to a year ago, majority of my patients, I am sending for GLP because I think they need it to overcome that weight gain.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agree.
And you're bringing up something because there's a lot of other hormones in the pancreas, that the pancreas is kind of responsible for, which do just kind of fall off. And, another thing that I think is so important too, I think this is the biggest thing that, in hindsight, when I think about what we're going through, women and diagnosed at all ages. So this could be, I'm meeting a lot of women diagnosed 50s, 60s. It's incredible. We talked about the numbers. So, and they're going up. Autoimmune seems to be on an influx right now. And So they're dealt the cards of a chronic disease that doesn't take a day off.
Yep.
And then, like all women, without diabetes, they are, the hormone fluctuations are literally disrupting their life and how they feel and how they sleep and emotionally. So when you think of our community that we've got, I mean, that's a double whammy.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's incredible what we endure. And, I often say too that, this disease, in many ways, it prepares us in a lot of ways for tough things because the average person couldn't do this every day.
Yeah.
And that doesn't still make it, it doesn't make it easy, and it doesn't make that, that there's people that do it better than others. But I think it's just reflective of how tough this is and really the disconnect of the doctors and the specialists to really give us true care. And then you talk about the other hormones that you two just mentioned. That is obviously we're hearing a lot more about the GLP-1s and we're learning more about it, thank goodness. So we understand how it works in the system. This is a hormone that is naturally occurring in our body. So this is not just something that we're just kind of making up or, bringing in that's not necessarily natural, but it's just so interesting. And there's so many facets to all of this for us women. It's just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kelly, I'm going to talk about what exactly, listeners are probably curious, what exactly are you contributing to the book? So what did I ask you to contribute?
Yeah. There were a number of good things that you had me fill in on the book, and I'm excited to see the end product, most definitely. But of course, I dove into nutrition strategies. As a dietitian, that's forefront. But along with nutrition strategies, it's all about protecting and optimize insulin sensitivity. It's about nutrient diversity. And from there, my conversations with you and often online or in interviews go to gut health. So our
Yeah.
gut health evolves, it changes, and there's not positive things, I would say, not necessarily positive things coming along the way with a drop in our hormones.
Yeah.
The gut can become more permeable, the gut diversity can go down, and with type 1 diabetes, it's that extra layer because our diversity of our gut bacteria is already low. So I talk about that in consumer friendly terms so people can walk away and take action with what to do to optimize their health. And I'm just scanning my memory as well. So I go into nutrition strategies, how to prevent those spikes, optimize gut health. And when we optimize gut health, it can optimize inflammation. When we optimize overall inflammation, we can improve insulin sensitivity. And that's the name of the game. As we go into this season of life, lower hormones, we're trying to keep that insulin sensitivity so things can stay stable. And then I also go into a few things of supplement strategies, with type 1 diabetes, with autoimmunity. I think there's nutrient gaps that need fulfilled. And then when we step into this new season, there's also opportunity to try new things from creatine to support muscle mass in the brain fog to, making sure that vitamin D is optimal, but that's probably every season, every age overall, but the dose may vary, to Vitex, to it all can vary from maca and more. I'm just thinking the top ones that I'm thinking through. But at the end of the day, B vitamins are very important, worth mentioning. And then lastly, I have so much passion with type 1 diabetes. We're at risk of other autoimmune conditions, and protecting the gut is a good priority. But secondly, to make sure we're always monitoring the thyroid beyond the TSH and T4. I want the full panel. We all should want the full panel.
That's right.
And lately I've been really, and why is lately, every time I work with a client, they get their thyroid, they always get a TSH and T4 only, and they miss those antibodies. And we can change antibodies nutritionally. And when we're hitting a new hormonal season, the risk of autoimmunity rises. So I want to know those antibodies and more. And thyroid's very common. So that's a quick overview of some of the stuff I touched on, but there's more. But yeah, I loved being part of this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Vanessa, obviously hormones is a big part of the book. And something we've kind of talked a little bit about perimenopause. And understandably, because, menopause was a term that we've been hearing it for a long time, but really the storm is the perimenopause. And the worst part is that it lasts a long time in some cases. So it can go on for years.
Yeah.
And I will say, just to give listeners and future readers just some little sneak peek, that's going to be the majority of this book, because that's really where the pain is. That's what I'm hearing from clients. There are days they just don't want to get up. There are days that they just feel like, I can't believe I've got to keep doing this. The unpredictability of their blood sugar, it's defeating, and just trying to find logical ways and also, gentle ways that they can not only, kind of reach this time of life with some sort of confidence and hope that it will get better. And it's funny because I usually promise a lot of them and say, okay, postmenopause, it does get better. It quiets down quite a bit. Because again, so explain to us the perimenopausal chaos that's going on.
Yeah.
And again, lots more details will be in the book, but Vanessa, you can give us kind of a preview.
Okay, so what I always say is average age of menopause is 52, and symptoms of perimenopause can start on average 10 years earlier. So if you're going into menopause at 52, your perimenopausal symptoms can start at 42. But what if you're going into menopause at 45? Your symptoms could be starting at age 35. So a lot of women think they're too young for perimenopause, but you don't know when you're going to go into menopause. And the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause can be exactly the same, but the difference is in menopause, meaning your ovaries don't work anymore and it's a year after your period stop, your symptoms are from loss of estrogen. But in perimenopause, when you're still getting, whether they're regular or irregular, your symptoms are from hormonal chaos. Your ovaries are trying to work. The brain is telling them to work. They're overworking one day. They're underworking another day. So it's the fluctuations that cause the symptoms, which are awful. It's the fluctuations that are also going to cause changes in your blood sugar. And what do we need as diabetics? We need routine. We need routine diet. We need a routine. And what is happening in perimenopause? Complete opposite of routine. Every day, every hour. And I get patients all the time that come in and say, can you check my hormones? But the reality is that in perimenopause, it's not reliable because it could be normal now and a doctor is going to say, oh, you're not in perimenopause, your estrogen's normal. But if you rechecked your estrogen 6 hours later or a day later, it might look like you're in menopause. So it's really hormonal chaos that causes symptoms, literally, as I say, from head to toe. It's not just the typical hot flashes, night sweats. There's so many debilitating symptoms.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's so interesting. Yeah. And again, the sooner we know and can expect this, the better, right? Yeah.
Right. What's important for us, we got to do better. Not you. I mean, us as doctors. And when someone's turning 30, what's the things you can expect from your next phase of life? Maybe it's pregnancy. Maybe it's perimenopause. And maybe we have to do more of what we call anticipatory guidance. So women know what's happening when it's happening versus 10 years later saying, I wish I knew 10 years ago that this was perimenopause.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And something, I'm going to tag this on to the end of mine because, I got kind of off track a little bit, which is known to happen. But just to kind of give you the tail end of mine. So I started on menopause hormones 6 years ago. So 2019, coming up on 7 years. So I was 50. How old was I? 51, 52. And so it's interesting because I did not stack because I know you're a proponent of that. And you can talk into that a little bit too if you want to, Vanessa, one at a time. Kelly, you followed that stance, starting with the progesterone. Again, I was a practitioner that, again, in hindsight, didn't really know. This office that I was working with at the time really didn't know how to prescribe. So I ended up going on the estrogen, compounded cream, the oral micronized oral progesterone at night, and testosterone compounded. So everything was good. But again, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what to really look for. But I was getting labs done because I was postmenopause. So labs did matter, which was a good indicator of what, they were doing. And I'm glad I did because the testosterone I was prescribed was way too high. I mean, my T level went like over 300, which is, it's a little high, isn't it, Vanessa?
Yeah.
For a woman. So in hindsight, but it is better, obviously, like Kelly's doing, and sounds like maybe what you've done as well, is to stack. So in other words, to start with one, especially in perimenopause. Is that something that we should be doing both in perimenopause, or the timing? Does it matter? Yeah. What does that look like?
When you take estrogen, you have to take progesterone because progesterone is the hormone that protects your uterus from unopposed estrogen. So essentially, if you take estrogen without progesterone, you can get endometrial hyperplasia, which is precancer or cancer. In perimenopause, women can take progesterone alone because for some women, their symptoms are from the progesterone drop. I think most women's symptoms are from the fluctuating estrogen, but in perimenopause, you can take progesterone without estrogen, but it really should not be the other way around.
Interesting.
So whenever I put someone on hormones, if they had a hysterectomy, you don't have to take progesterone. or if you have the Mirena IUD in place, because that's protecting your uterus. So I always prescribe the estrogen and progesterone together. But testosterone, if someone's going to go on testosterone, that I do separately. Because a lot of women, the indication for testosterone is low libido. And I always say testosterone only helps about 50% of women with low libido because there's a whole bunch of different other reasons for low libido.
Mm-hmm.
But for a lot of women, their low libido is from perimenopause or menopausal symptoms. So once we treat the perimenopause, menopause with estrogen and progesterone, about half of women will have improved libido. So then they may not necessarily need the testosterone. So I never start all three at one time, but I always start estrogen with progesterone.
Yeah. And it's so there's so many layers too.
Sure, but
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
starting
Yeah.
progesterone
Yeah.
alone and seeing how you feel, there's no harm to that. But there could be harm if you do estrogen without progesterone.
Right. And I'm assuming too, because that's part of the old adage too, that if you don't have a uterus, then you don't need the progesterone. But there's so many
Correct.
benefits to progesterone. So that's something you will prescribe if the woman say, I mean, why not? I mean, it's not going to
Well,
hurt to bring it in.
It usually, right, it doesn't hurt, but for some women, they do have a side effect from micronized progesterone of tiredness or sleepiness. So for some women, it does help their sleep. Not everybody gets that benefit. So I will try if I have a woman who doesn't really want to go on estrogen or is just reporting symptoms, the second half, we could try progesterone alone. And I would say about half the time their sleep is improved, and that's all they need temporarily until we have to add the estrogen. But I have given women progesterone that either don't have a uterus or have them for other purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, everybody's so unique.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, that's the thing
yeah,
is it's
yeah.
individualized care. Everyone, what one person prescribes for you may be totally something different for Kelly. Like it should be individualized care depending on that person's medical history, their symptoms, and their preferences as well.
Yeah. Kelly, do you have anything to add to that? Or
I love how she said
Yeah.
preferences, because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, if I were to say I want what I know could be best for my women's health,
Right.
my female health, it would be the creams. But I know in this season of life with 2 young kids and carpools endlessly every night, like I just can't do creams right now. I'm just throwing on a patch.
Yeah.
But I know in time I want the creams. But at this moment, I'm just doing a patch and an oral progesterone at night. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Right.
Yeah. It's so nice we have some choices,
Well,
right?
that's why we
Yes.
compliment
Yeah.
too. There are so many different ways to do this.
I
Some
know.
women might, think there's only, you can only take oral. I'm like, no, there's patches, there's gels, there's a ring to the vagina. There's so many different ways to do it. And
Mhm.
sometimes it is a trial. You give someone 3 months, they come back and we can adjust, we can tweak the treatment.
Yeah. And actually, that's a really good thing just to add on, because it's not a set it and go.
No.
I think a lot of doctors think, okay, here you go, see you in a year. So when I hear that, and I'm sure if you ever, you have patients that come to you that maybe got that kind of conversation from the doctor, is like, no, it's something that really has to happen. It needs to be monitored. But symptoms really matter. I mean, symptoms matter. I mean, symptoms drive, whether or not a certain level is optimal for you as well. Because again, there's the ideal level of estrogen for you in postmenopause, but we don't know until we kind of get there, right? And just like you say, kind of tweak it and
Exactly.
experiment. I love the word experiment. We do a lot of experimenting with type 1 diabetes,
Yes.
from food to exercise to all that stuff.
Yeah. The only other thought I think worthy to add is when I'm thinking of clients going on hormones or even myself is optimize the gut as much as possible and support the liver, because the liver is metabolizing all of these medications we're taking and everything to make sure we're nurturing that as well, and nurturing that with fiber, optimal hydration, of course, steady our blood sugars when we can, although that can be the symptom we're trying to squash. But those are, I think, very important to mention as well.
So
and we got to
true.
poop. That's like
Transdermal estrogen products are great. So most of us prescribe the transdermal because it avoids oral estrogen is broken down in the liver, which increases blood clotting factors and other things. By doing a patch, a gel, or a ring in the vagina, we're bypassing the liver. So better for the liver.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just teased on vaginal estrogen. So this is a funny story too. So I was in the school that, okay, I'm on systemic, and systemic is what we're talking about. So these are things that are taken that it's going to be systemically absorbed throughout the body. And I remember talking to my practitioner about a year ago, and I was like, well, what do you think about vaginal estrogen? And she was not as aware of really the importance, and based on this, and this is another thing to consider, because I looked into it a little bit more and I'm like, you know what? This is a no-brainer. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to wait for symptoms to pop up,
Or or if
right?
you're on systemic estrogen, about 70% of women also have improvement in vaginal dryness, symptoms of the vagina, but about 30% still do need separate treatment. So if you're on
Yeah.
systemic estrogen, you may never need anything for your vagina. But however, if you do develop dryness, pain, incontinence, urgency, anything, adding vaginal estrogen does not increase the risks of the systemic estrogen that you're taking. There is
That's what I've
no risk
understood.
to local vaginal estrogen therapy. So you can
Yeah.
do both systemic and separate vaginal. Or
Hmm.
there's a ring on the market that a lot of women don't know about. It's a ring that can achieve systemic doses, but it's placed in the vagina. It stays in the vagina for 3 months. So it
Um,
kills two birds with one stone. You still would need progesterone if you have a uterus, but it's a great option for someone who maybe doesn't want to do a patch, a pill in the vagina, and the progesterone.
I love it. I love these options. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, thank you for touching on that. I really appreciate it. So, do you think there's any reason for a woman living with insulin-dependent diabetes to, to say no to hormone therapy? Or I know in general there are some women that can't, and there's there are some contraindicators. But I think, now that I think about this even more, because I'm just reflective of recent conversations that I'm having, is I think that women with type 1 insulin dependent, they have got so much going on with the day to day of blood sugar.
Right.
So once they learn about what these hormone therapies can do to help, and again, there's always exceptions to that for different reasons, but I think it's like what you said, Kelly. Hell yeah. Sign me
Right.
up. Give me something. And I think that's another thing this book is going to offer is really it's going to educate them on why it's important, how to utilize it, how you can safely do it. But wouldn't you agree, Vanessa, that this is something that the endo offices, the endocrinologists
Yeah.
should be really schooled on. I think that's what frustrates me enough is such a disconnect. My own doctor, when I was talking about being on hormone therapy, it was just a blank response. She
Yes.
didn't understand, didn't know anything about insulin resistance with estrogen, no connection at all. So again, we have an opportunity to even maybe educate our doctors, don't we?
Well, that's part of why
Yeah.
Miss Now is not just treating patients, is we are trying to educate other medical professionals, not just OBGYNs, because a lot
Yeah.
of women are going to go to their primary doctor with joint pains, with weight gain. A lot of women are going to go to the cardiologist with palpitations. And instead of the
Yeah.
cardiologist saying, listen, your heart's fine, have a good day, how great would it be if the cardiologist said, listen, your heart's fine, but maybe it's your hormones. But
Yeah.
the other thing I think that's very important is having moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms, meaning hot flashes, night sweats, not sleeping, in and of itself puts women at risk for heart disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, and osteoporosis. Now, as type 1 diabetics, depending on our control and depending on how long we have it, we're already at increased risk of heart disease and other things,
Mhm.
microvascular disease. Now throw on moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms, and now we're just compounding our risks. So another reason why we should really seek treatment, because we don't want to make our risks in the future even worse because we think we can't treat symptoms that are treatable. And the other thing I think is important is, yes, not everyone can be on hormones. If someone already has heart disease, they should not be on hormones. Doesn't mean they can't be, but
Yeah.
there are non-hormonal treatment options for women because the symptoms are health risks for us later too. And the earlier we go into menopause, type 1 diabetics are more likely to go into premature menopause. That puts us at risk of health risks in the future. The earlier, if you go into menopause before the age of 45, that's considered early. Before 40, premature, we are
Yeah.
increasing our risk of heart disease, again, dementia, fractures, osteoporosis, so many things. So we
Yeah.
can't ignore our symptoms. And
Yeah.
quality of
Yeah.
life is also very important. It's not just our hearts we have to worry about. Our quality of life is very important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It reminds me of a verse or quote that I heard. It was the blank wall. These women, they said, I'm going to look at my notes to see
Mhm.
what it was. It's only because I don't want to mess this up. But basically, she felt like she was hitting a blank wall
Yeah.
and just not knowing which way was up. But quality of life is everything. And
Yes.
we can't manage this disease when we just don't feel well. We simply
No.
don't feel well.
And we
Yeah.
encourage diet and exercise when you're diabetic, right? If your joints hurt, if you haven't slept in 3
Right.
days, if you're having hot flashes and night sweats constantly, if you gained weight around your belly and you're insecure, you're not going to want to work out, or maybe physically you can't work out. And you know this better than I do, Kelly, but when we're not sleeping, our leptin and our ghrelin hormones are, I always forget which is which, but it's making us want the bad foods. There's studies that
Yeah.
show that when you're not sleeping, you are more likely to go for the processed food, the higher carbs, because the hormones are making you do that. So we have to treat those symptoms so we can
Yeah.
live a healthier life.
Yeah.
Did I get that wrong,
Yeah.
Kelly?
No, ghrelin makes you hungry. Leptin is satiety. Think
I
growl.
think growl. I
Growling
love your
stomach.
acronyms. She's got a good way to tie things back to.
But we
Oh
can't
my
be
God.
healthy if we have hormones opposing our healthy living.
Yeah.
And when we're not
Yeah.
feeling well, we can't be physically active like we tell diabetic patients that they should be.
Yeah. 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 And when our endo just says, well, just take more insulin.
I'm so happy
Yeah.
to say, so here where I work
Yeah.
for Northwell on Long Island. We are
Yeah.
encouraging doctors to become menopause certified. And here in my building, there's an endocrine practice, and 2 of the endocrinologists are getting menopause certified. Like, how cool is
Wow.
that? I
Yeah.
mean, that doesn't mean they have to write a prescription for estrogen and progesterone, but that means they'll have knowledge about it. So I think that's
Yeah.
so cool, and I'm so excited. As soon as this book is out, I'm bringing it to them.
Huge
Because
step, right? Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely starts with awareness. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna throw some rapid fire questions. These are fun. So I think you'll have fun with this. So I'm gonna ask each of you this one question. So in one word, give me one word that describes midlife with type 1 diabetes.
unpredictable.
How about you, Kelly?
Recalibration. It's a big word. Recalibrate.
I love that. What's one habit that changes everything?
I immediately think protecting our energy,
Mhm.
protecting what we say yes to. And along with that, it's boundaries. You know, as we
Yeah.
get older, we give fewer cares.
Right.
And I think we have to.
Yeah. Wisdom.
And I think doing whatever we can do to increase our quality of life. And for everyone,
Yeah.
that's different, whether it's sleep, whether it's hot flashes, whether it's
Yeah.
weight, whatever it is, but whatever literally physically makes us feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And realizing what that is
Mm-hmm.
and saying yes to it as often as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The one habit that I think, and this is something I guard like a guard dog, is my sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
It all starts
So
with that, isn't it? Yes. It's such a trickle
so
down
good.
effect when sleep is poor or missed. So what is one lab every woman should monitor? So this is a lab level. So what's the most important one, do you think? I know there could be a lot of them, but
Oh, there's so
I'll
many.
throw mine out there because I've already said it. The full thyroid panel.
thyroid
The
panel.
full thyroid panel. Because a lot of
Especially if
those
you have an autoimmune
symptoms,
disease. Yeah.
yeah, because a lot of those symptoms can be mistaked for hormonal. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
important to know both.
That's so hard for me because there's so many different hormones.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'd have to say sugar. I don't know, because there's so many,
Blood
in
levels.
terms of labs, like in
Yeah.
terms of hormone care, we don't need the hormones that much.
True.
So I would say, yeah, just your
Yeah. Now, what about Kelly? You just reminded me of something of the HSCRP, which is inflammatory marker. That doesn't get talked about enough, but I'm learning more and more about that one. That's a true indicator, isn't it, of other
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah. Then your question is just my thoughts on it, or
Yeah. Just curious as to what you know about that. Yeah, just explaining what it is, because I'm pretty sure you know.
yeah,
Chess.
HCRP is a high sensitivity CRP inflammation marker, and it's just overall inflammation in the body. It doesn't tell us where or why,
Mhm.
but it's very sensitive. So it can be a marker of inflammation from a recent sickness. It can be inflammation from low estrogen. When our estrogen's low, inflammation goes up, hence joint pain, etc., etc. So it's just a good marker to consistently monitor to see how overall things are. And it's something I advocate for often for myself, just to check in how things are for my gut health. I'm gluten-free, not by choice. And my latest one was high, and I was like, ooh, why? What do I need to go inflammation hunting on to overall optimize my quality of life?
Yeah.
But I love that one.
Yeah. And what it does is raises a flag.
Yes.
And it kind of, in a sense, in a loving way, it just forces us to look closer at what's going on. But as we know, estrogen is anti-inflammatory.
yes.
Yeah.
Maybe you need more estrogen, or maybe you just need estrogen,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah.
I've had, depending who I'm talking to, what practitioner in my village taking care of me, I talk to about my CRP levels, because I recently had some higher ones that I don't like. I don't want anything above a 1. And they said, why worry? It's below 10. Why worry? It's below 10.
Mm,
And I'm like, no, we're going hunting.
right.
But I think that's what we all should be curious. Be
Yeah.
curious. Why is it high? Why is it
Right.
high? What can I do? What can I
Or
optimize?
just because it's maybe normal according to the lab, it's like you said, it's not normal
Not
for you. So
optimal.
just because it's less than 10 doesn't mean that's your norm, which is why
Right.
I think that's smart that you're looking at it and looking into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What's different for you? What's changed?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I've got one more question. One message of hope for women who may be afraid of menopause. So what do
Well,
you
don't be afraid. Most people are fearing it because they think this is just the way they're going to be for the rest of their lives. Don't
Hmm.
fear it. Know that there are people that can help. Yes, you may have to search. You may go to your own doctor. You may not get that information, but in the book will be where you can find information across the country so that don't be afraid of it. There are options. That's the most important thing to know. There are options. You just got to find the right person to give you those options.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how about
Yeah.
you, Kelly? What's one message of
Yeah.
hope?
One message. It's hard to narrow it down to one, but I think perimenopause, as that's the season I know most, is it can just be really eye-opening and in a good way. Perimenopause doesn't let us hide things. Whatever might be weak in our 20s or in our 30s will be more exasperated and
Sure.
highlighted in our 30s, and it'll be just our body speaking to us to help us take care of it.
Yeah.
So take it head on.
Excellent.
And I've been thinking a lot that I thought was important to mention here too, like when I was a little girl, my dad had this big 40th party with black balloons in the house. He's over the hill. And I believe and feel and really have faith in that. He's like when our lives take off. So don't fear aging, don't fear these seasons, and just get excited because you really get to know yourself better and better and who you truly
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think this disease does this, it gives us, again, I think that's another gift that we have. We're put in a position to be more in tune with our health. So lucky us, right?
Right.
Some
Right.
days it doesn't feel good, but lucky us that we get to, that these are things that we can stay close to and to feel better. And we have a lot of motivation to have a functioning, healthy life, right?
Mhm.
Even when
Yeah.
those hormones are doing a nosedive, but we're
Yeah.
gonna come in and do some things to help it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, do you have any final thoughts before we say goodbye today? Vanessa, or anything else that you wanted to share?
I'm just so grateful to the two of you for doing this and speaking about this because, like I said, it's not being spoken about, and especially to such a unique community like type 1 diabetics. There's not a lot of us, and less people that really would understand the differences. So I think what you two do is
Yeah.
awesome, and I'm so glad to have been invited to this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just closing thoughts agree. It's an honor. We're helping fill a space that needs attention and
Mhm.
to the listeners to connect with us and let us know what's going on in their lives so we can even serve even more.
Good point. Good point. Well, we are recording this in midish February. So the book is expected. We're expected having it on the shelves late April is my hope. Maybe a little sooner, but that's a realistic expectation. We will have an advanced reader team, which I'm excited about. So if you're interested in being on that team, listening today, and you want to get again, I'm still learning all these book jargon. So excuse me for this. So it may sound French or something else, but basically there's going to be a draft that you get to see first, read it, give us some feedback, write a review. That would be amazing too. So you can learn more about that. You can just visit the show notes here and sign up to get on that team. And of course, you get access to the book when it is published. All those nice perks. But we appreciate, again, women that need to hear this, that want to hear this, and give us some true, honest feedback about what they read in the pages. So with that, I'm excited. 2026, here we come. Highs, lows, and hormones. So this is a survival guide for women with diabetes from monthly cycles to perimenopause and into menopause. The title actually says from monthly cycles to menopause, but I wanted to throw in the peri in there because we talk so much about it today. But yeah, and again, it's going to be for women of all ages. And I think that's the number one thing because I talked about just all the stuff I was going through in my 40s and 50s and not even realizing it was hormone related is I wished I had this at 20. I wished I had a book like this when I was 30, and we're not going to be talking about the pregnancy stage. That was one part of the hormonal process that a lot of women experience that we will not be covering in the book. But everything else, monthly cycle related, all the way through if and when you decided to get on menopausal hormone therapy. So there's going to be just a ton of resources. I'm just so excited. I can barely stop myself. My editor has just, and I told you both before I hit record today, I heard from her yesterday. We get on a call like once a week, and she's like, my gosh, this is so good. I am learning so much. And she doesn't live with diabetes. She's postmenopause, so she could relate to a lot of it. I think that's another indicator too. It's still so relatable no matter who you
Right.
are and what stage you're in, whether or not you got to watch blood sugar or not. So more to come on that. And definitely follow both Dr. Vanessa Soviero and Kelly Schmidt. I will have their information here. You can reach out, say hello, and definitely reach out to us online. We'd love to hear what you think about the show. Stay tuned. There's a book coming out soon. Okay, ladies, thanks so much for your time and coming
Thank
in here
you. Thank
and
you.
giving the listeners a chance to meet you.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.